Hey, thanks for joining us for our roundtable where we're going to be spending some time talking about the church and racial diversity and unity among people who aren't necessarily alike and don't always think alike. With me, I have Jake Power, who's on staff with us at Islands. He serves as kind of an executive pastor, executive director, and we're thankful that he's part of this. I have also Kenny Grant, who is the senior pastor of Calvary Baptist Temple and been there a number of years, and just an awesome friend of mine. I have also Sergeant Burdett, Zachary Burdett with the Savannah Police Department, who is the head of the homicide unit, and then Robert Price, who is the owner of Elite Minds. He's a psychologist and a professional counselor. And so the goal of our time together is to just talk about this hard subject of race, diversity, and to have some conversation with people that we don't all look alike and we don't all come from the same backgrounds. The first thing I wanted to ask you was, something I keep hearing, maybe you've heard this before too, is the local church is the most segregated place in America. Have you heard this before? Around the table? You've heard that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You guys have heard that?
Yes.
Robert, you've heard that?
Yeah, the idea that 11 a.m. on Sunday morning is the most racially segregated hour of the week might be true.
So we all agree that's probably true?
Probably.
Yeah.
Do we think it's okay? Like, do we think it's like, no big deal? Where are we on that?
Well, I'll tell you this. I pastor a church where we are seeing racial diversity. I think the church ought to look like maybe the community we're trying to reach. And I love the idea of the church looking like, the world around it. And we're trying to reach people from the world. And so it seems to me that if we're all about that, then the church will grow to look like what the world is around it, at least racially, that is.
So for you, it's not okay that the church is primarily segregated at the 11 o'clock hour in America?
Well, I mean, I get it, but I think that it bespeaks a problem that we're not going after people that we see. We're not sharing the gospel, we're not relating with people that who don't look like us, who are not running around in our crowd. I think it speaks to something.
Okay, anybody else? Like, is it okay? Is it not okay?
Well, no, it's definitely not okay. I mean, heaven is full of everyone that looks much racially different, first and foremost, but they come from every background, every walk of life. And so if the church itself is not being able to create a space or a place that looks like heaven for their people, then I think that's a problem. But that speaks to a lot of the folks that we actually have in our church and even the messages from the pulpit. And so if our pastors are modeling that behavior, if they are actually doing those things to create even a staff that looks that way or volunteers that, so that way we're actually able to reach and get to people, because at the end of the day, the message of Christ is inclusive, but it's also exclusive, but really it's inclusive for all people. And so we have to make sure that we're able to get that message out to all people. And it should be to all. I mean, if we live in Savannah, it's a racially diverse, particularly place. I came from Maryland and DC area. It's a racially diverse place and space. And so the church itself should look that way.
Zach, go ahead.
I don't know if this directly answers the question you did, but I'm glad you hit us with the hard-hitting question. Because before I heard both of y'all's responses, I agree that church and the 11 o'clock hour is segregated, but in my opinion, we as a society, not just any race, any group, any Christians are Christians. We all love each other because we're all children of God. However, when I leave church, I hang out with my group of friends. When I'm at work, I hang out with, my group of friends. And if I did a better job as a Christian going out, especially doing what I do, and I'm out in the community, I see people who are not like me many days. And instead of walking up to one of my coworkers who looks like me or who I say, you know what, you may be somebody who likes Island Christian. You might like the kind of music we sing. You might like the messages. Go out and invite somebody that's absolutely nothing like me. Say, hey man, or excuse ma'am, you're having a tough time. Why don't you come to church with me on Sunday? I love you for who you are. Why don't you come to church with me on Sunday? Then I, as a Christian, I'm reaching out. I'm trying to help spread the word and encourage people to come and join me, to where other people start seeing that. And then, you have a congregation that's full of love and understanding, and know it's okay to talk to people and be around people that aren't like you.
That's a great thing. So what you're saying is that the role of because we're talking about Christian, we're not talking about the leadership, we're talking about the Christians in the church. What the role is then is to, like you said, when you're in your circle of influences outside, you kind of break out of your typical circles, right? You just force yourself to maybe look at somebody that doesn't look like you and say, why would I assume they wouldn't come to my church? Robert, did you have something you want to add to that?
I mean, I just think that the role of Christians is just I feel like it's no different even if you are the pastor. I think we're all Christian. So, and if we all believe that God is here for all of us, I mean, he literally died for just Jake, if we come to circumstances that way, like when you see someone and you actually say, man, Jesus died just for that person, and you are a Christian, it should change your perspective immediately. That's called transformation.
Kind of like I come from my campfire, and you come from your campfire, and you come from your, but we all come with the smoke of that in our hair, in our clothing, in our thought processes, and then we come to Christ, but we have not jettisoned a lot of our old things.
Is there inequality in our nation connected to the race of a person?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You guys would say that, right?
Oh,
away?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I see it every day.
Okay, I'm just asking
need
a
a
question.
definition of what that looks like.
Would the average person who is your skin color say, yeah, it doesn't make them a racist.
Would they?
Doesn't make it.
I don't think
Would
so.
would the average person that you know of your say that?
In my personal opinion, if you polled every single white person in the whole entire country, I would say 75% of people would not say that.
Would not say that.
Would not say that there's
Because
inequalities.
and that's what I'm interested in, see, because nothing is real till you feel it, until it's personal. And so I want, my issue is, number one, it does exist. You know, I've been black for 59 years and 5 months, right? So I know it does exist. Now listen, you're talking to a guy who pastors a church that was absolutely predominantly white when they asked me to come and serve as pastor. And I have very meaningful relationships. So I am a person who is not an angry man, you know, because I've experienced so much myself. But I'm going to tell you, it does exist. And it's one of the things that's a problem, I think, to people of color is for people who don't experience it, who don't understand it, they've been on with the slant that favors them, to say, oh, no, it doesn't exist. We all have the same opportunity, you know. It's kind of like me having a pair of pliers, and my finger is in the jaws, and yours on the handle. And you say, well, we both experiencing these pliers. Well, yeah, but it's a different experience.
Is there inequality in our nation based on the race of a person?
There is, yes. I mean, but I think that's just it's a narrow lens, but absolutely. And that's where, see, being a Christian changes your perspective of how you see that. Because you know that it exists because it exists for everybody, but there is, and I've shared this with you, but I've also shared it with many of people, and it goes back to the privilege. So we all at this particular table have different privileges. And so we also have to understand what those are. And depending on what your privilege is, you may or may not even recognize that you have it. And so there is racial inequality. This country, if people care to want to look, right, and understand it, they may say, oh, well, I didn't do that. But people come to this country for a pursuit of happiness around certain principles and ideals. And because of where they come from, those pursuits and those ideals can happen to them a little bit more quickly because of opportunities based upon just solely the color of their skin. And so we have to recognize that. It has to be something that is accepted or talked about. But there are differences. There are definitely inequalities. But I think once we start recognizing actually what all of our privileges are, then we can actually address the inequalities better.
Okay, so now So I think what you just said is right. Once we start recognizing what our privileges are, then we can start addressing the inequalities that are a reality. Not just the white church, not just the black church. What is the role of the church for racial inequality in this nation? Like what are we called? What do we have to offer? Like what do we have to say to racial inequality? What can we do? Or anything?
It's in the Bible. So if we stick to the word, we have our answers. I'll share this, I'll share it here, is that, Christ himself said, hey, listen, disciples, we're going to go down Martin Luther King Boulevard and Malcolm X. We're going to go those roads. That's the route we're going to take today. But wait, Jesus, we don't want to go through Samaria. That's not where we want to go. We want to go this other but see, Jesus has already given us the example of what we and where we should go as the church, big C and little c, and individual C's, Christians. He's already told us where we should go and what we should do because there's work to be done down those roads. But we choose not to do it.
Right. So that's different from being the role of the church. The role of the church is to preach the gospel to every creature, every person. And so that necessarily means go where they are.
Yeah.
But
Go to Samaria.
Right. He must go through Samaria because there's going to be an encounter with the woman Jesus crossed so many boundaries with her. But you necessarily go where the gospel needs to go, because the gospel is the answer.
And you're talking about the difference between the role of the church and the work of the church to accomplish the mission.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of times what's happening, especially now, what I'm hearing is, this is the role of the church. You shouldn't be doing anything but this.
Right, I understand.
And people aren't seeing.
Right. The goal of the church, the purpose, we were left here, is to preach the gospel, but we go wherever the gospel needs to be preached. And as we preach it, we need to be the leading exponents of the message.
Zach.
I think a lot of it too is not just the responsibility of the leaders of the church to do that. You preach on this all the time. The church isn't just a building that we come to on Sunday mornings on Wilmington or Whitmarsh Island that says moving people towards Jesus. As a Christian, it is our responsibility, even if you don't see somebody in need, to help them and guide them, because I needed that at one point in time in my life, and had people not done that for me, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Right.
And as a people and a child of God, I'm part of the church. I am the church.
Right.
And I have the ability to go out and help people and bring people in to that as well.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the next question, kind of following behind that. Something I'm hearing a lot right now from my white friends, but also from my black friends is, hey, white Christians have all the responsibility in this effort. White Christians have all the responsibility in this effort. So let's talk about that, okay? Is that true? Is it not true? What say you?
And I got it then.
Go
ahead.
White
people.
In church. In church
So
and
just
equality.
White people is what I share this with. We would have no underground railroad if it weren't for brave white people. Because see, I needed to stay in their house. So where are they? Right? That's the question for me. So if that's the case, we need people, white Christians. If it's them, great. I would love for it to actually be them so that they can understand what it's like to be a Christian. Because this is a Christian thing. It's not a white thing or a black thing or all lives matter thing. It's a Christian. You're a Christ follower. So if you don't follow Christ, then maybe we have a whole nother conversation. Yeah. And we can actually start there before we start talking about, well, I look different than you. That's obvious. But what are you doing to stand with Christ for other Christians, for inequalities?
In my opinion, I don't think it's all, I don't think the burden is all on one group or one person. I think as a white Christian, it's my responsibility to lean into my other brothers in Christ and say, hey man, what do you need? Is there something I can help you with? Is there something that I'm not seeing through your eyes? Because I'm obviously not seeing everything through your eyes. But is there something that you can help me understand? Because there's a lot of things that, as a white Christian, I've got my own life experiences that are different than yours and different from Jake's. We can talk about those, but what our life experiences are nothing like what you guys' are. Right. And until I understand what you've been through and I'm willing to sit and talk to you and understand them.
It's never just one person's responsibility one side's responsibility to bring reconciliation. Even if, and this is not saying it's happened, but even if the person was totally wrong, this person still has to do some forgiving, this person still has to do some soul searching,
Some opening up.
opening up, mercy showing, right? A willingness to allow the gestures that are being made towards reconciliation to come in. And so of course, no. It's never one side's responsibility totally to do anything when you talk about relationship.
Yeah, and I think in this case, to the question, a lot of this is why white Christians, I think, have a higher level of responsibility. I think we've got more work to do. And I think it's because we've been unknowingly, in a lot of ways, but some knowingly, complicit with the segregation and the separation that's existed, especially within the church. And I think it's, if we want to get honest about it, I think it's way more comfortable for white people to keep a white church than to do any work to change it. When you have something like that, that's just raked across all of society, if we're gonna actually get down to it, I think it takes more work on a white Christian's part to examine themselves, understand the levels of privilege that we've unknowingly lived under, didn't know it, whatever, right? Some people know it, some people don't. Understand some of the issues of why is the church even this way? How did this even happen to begin with? Because the truth is, as we've grown up as white people and grown up as white Christians, wherever we became a white Christian, whatever, Christian or not, you grow up white, you're not taught those things. You're not educated in those things. Nobody sits you down and talks about, white parents don't go, let me explain some of the benefits of being white to you.
Well, we've used the word privilege quite a bit, and I'm just going to be really honest. When I talk about the term white privilege and I use the term privilege, it seems to cause a reaction, okay, that oftentimes is an ending of a conversation. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting about this table is the two African-American brothers at the table have talked about their privilege of being born in America. Like, you've acknowledged that you guys were quick to acknowledge that you had some privilege to be born here, right? But my white brothers want to
that word, that's an irritant. Mm-hmm. You follow me? So people say, well, nobody gave me anything. I worked and I did this, and I use an analogy of a baseball game, or, some people were born on third. They act like they hit a triple, but they were born on third, right?
Yeah.
And listen, everybody wasn't born on third. Some people were born on second. And then there are some born on first. And some people were just at the plate trying to get a hit. And then there's some born in the field. Said, y'all can't play this game. Y'all just catch what we get. You follow what I'm saying?
And I don't know Kenny's parents, but I would venture to say that along his career path, they've spoken those words. You are privileged.
Oh, yeah.
You have taken and received opportunities that other people that look just like you never received. Mm-hmm. And so maybe Jake's conversation with his kids is different because that never comes up. Because it doesn't
I'm telling you, it
exist.
never came
but
up
it
when
comes
I was
up
a
in
kid.
black families.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it comes up. I know it comes up in discussion.
White families. We
Well,
were never taught any of that.
Well, look, when you understand grace as much as we can understand it, we received it freely. Mm-hmm. Salvation is a gift.
So we're all in the terms of our salvation, we're all privileged.
We're privileged.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Then you look at where you were born in America. Could have been born somewhere else. Born in America, right? With all of our problems,
Privilege.
still want to be a privilege. Born with a healthy body. Born with a mind that's able to receive. I don't, appreciate that. Stop. Feel that. Appreciate that.
Whenever you hear that term privilege, but more specifically white privilege, why do you think it creates some of those negative feedback and feelings associated with that term? Why does it cause so much shutdown so quickly?
Personally, I think it just makes white people feel uncomfortable. It's like, most people don't like being uncomfortable, but then when you start talking about things like that, white people just feel uncomfortable about it. If you ask me, I yes, I'm white. Yes, there are things that I received growing up. There are things, even in my career now, I may not see today, but I may see in 5 or 10 years where I have an opportunity that someone who's black did not get the same opportunity. You know, but if you ask me if I have on an everyday a white privilege about it or growing up, I would say I had to fight way more than the average white person. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, I do have privileges, you know, and if you want to talk about things and politics and in the world today, like, yes, I can run down the street and I don't have to worry about, you know, another person coming out of a house and shooting and killing me just because I'm in a certain neighborhood. Like, I don't have to worry about driving through my neighborhood and being pulled over by a police officer. Like, there's a lot of things in my life that I don't have to worry about on a daily basis, you know, but in the overall perspective of white privilege, I think, and this may sound crazy, like, I think there's steps and levels of it, depending on your
First,
upbringing.
second, third, right?
But
First,
yeah,
second,
yeah,
third.
like, I mean, like you said, I'm saying the same thing, but like, and I think that's what makes people feel uncomfortable, because somebody may say, you know, man, no, Jake's mom and daddy are millionaires. Like, okay, of course he didn't have to fight for anything. Like, my dad was sick from the time that I was 10 years old. Like, my family had a one income. My mom and dad shared a car. My dad didn't work. Like, how did I have some kind of white privilege, you know? But then when you think about it, like, well, I still lived in a nice neighborhood, you know.
Well, the comparison is who we compare ourselves to. It's
Yes.
It's like when we talk about sinning, right? We like to compare our sins to someone who is sinning less or more, right?
Yes.
This is what we do.
Yes.
This is the same thing that goes with privilege.
Right.
You
So,
gotta feel better
so you,
somehow.
right. So you're one. So this, you know, so you're a single family, or you're a single mother, or you're one income. Okay, cool. But because your mom was white, her waitressing wage was a little bit higher than my black mama's waitressing wage.
tips
You
were
know what I'm saying? A little
better.
bit, right? So people have a hard time even wanting to accept
Yes.
or understand it.
Right.
But I think it's just, you know,
Yeah,
the more
and-
conversations that we have about it, I think it opens people's eyes
Yeah.
to it.
What happens with, I used to be one of those white people that got angry when people talked about white privilege. I would be like, bruh, you know, you don't know. You know, I would quickly, and I think what happens is when we hear the term white privilege, we automatically assume you're saying, I didn't work for what I got.
And that's not
That's
it.
good.
And that's not what anybody's
Right.
saying.
That's not it.
Right.
Nobody's saying you didn't work for what you got. They're just, the analogy I always use with Robert, I use this all the time talking about Robert. I'll say, you know, Robert and I both are on the 8th floor of our careers. And the difference is I started on floor 1 and Robert started in the basement.
Yeah.
My job right now is to make sure that Jameson, Micah, and Kyle start on floor 1 with Adler. Like, that's a role I have now, right? And that's all that. Now, did I work hard to get to 8th floor?
Sure.
Yeah, I worked my tail off to get to the. Did Robert work hard to get to the 8th floor? Yeah, he did. He just had to work 1 extra floor. Does that belittle my work? Nope. It doesn't belittle it at all.
It's helpful in the whole scheme of things for us to hear somebody say that and understand that. It may not fix a whole lot, but please, let's stop
Not
and
yet.
feel it.
Not
Let's-
yet,
Not
right?
yet, but feel that.
But it has
Right,
to
there
start.
is right. You know, there are extra steps in the process. Some people were born at bat, and some people were born in the field. Some folk came here to improve their way of life, and my folk were brought here to improve your way of life. You see what I'm saying? So we didn't start at the same place,
Right.
and admit that. That's helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm not
Right.
accusing
Because
you.
from that point, business owners, leaders in communities, leaders in organizations, they're going to be the ones that can recognize it. And then when 2 applications for the same job show up in front of them, and one says Katrina, and one says John, qualifications are the same. You have a choice. If you can't recognize what's really going on, you're going to fall under the same system, right? It's just like any sin, honestly. And I'm not saying white privilege is
Oh,
a
yeah.
sin. What I'm saying is that discrimination that oftentimes white privilege can lead to, not saying it always does, is a problem.
So how do we as Christians, as brothers in Christ and sisters in Christ, how do we as Christians talk about race and police work? Like, investigating cases and patrolman stops and taking witness statements. Like, how do we even help and instruct? Like, what can we do? Like, do you have any thoughts on policing and race and our job as Christians in this?
We spend less time getting out of our cars and getting to know people as human beings, other than just sitting in my car, looking at my computer and waiting to get dispatched to Robert's house. And I don't know him, but I'm like, oh man, here we go. Like, I know this address. I've been over here a couple of times. What's his problem now? You know what I mean? Like, I don't get to know him. I don't know his kids, his wife, you know. And if you spend a little bit more time getting to know them, then things become a little bit easier.
Well,
and in investigation, like in the investigation side, it becomes tough, and sometimes race plays a little bit of role in it. And you know, because we may go to a scene, and it doesn't matter what kind of crime has been committed, but you, as a white investigator going out into a predominantly African American community, they may not answer the door for you, or they may not want to talk to you because they're scared for obvious reasons. But you just got to know how to talk to people, understand people, and if you do that, things start opening, doors start opening up. You know, I spent a long time working in a certain area of town as an officer. I got to know a lot of people in the community, and since that has happened, anytime we have any crimes out there, people may not answer the door when I go knock on it, but guess what? They got my cell phone number, and they're willing to call me and say, hey, Zach, I know something about that. Where can I meet you?
As God is your helper, show the world what Christ looked like if he were a policeman. You do Christian policeman like you do a Christian psychologist, like a Christian a home builder, like a Christian truck driver. Right? I mean, because I'm the leading exponent of this message.
That's good.
So I want to be respectful. Now I know out there on the edge where things get tight and tense and you got to move fast, it's considerably harder. Show the world what Christ looked like if he had a gun and a badge, or if he were tasked with protecting and serving.
When I come in contact with you, it doesn't matter. I'm coming to you in the darkest time of your life. I'm coming to you because someone who you love absolutely dearly has passed away. And I have empathy towards people. My job sometimes takes away a little bit of it sucks the life out of you, I guess would be the best way to say it. But so anytime I'm in that situation, I'm a little uncomfortable, more so because I have never had somebody killed in my life. I've had someone very close to me, and my dad passed away very unexpectedly, you know. However, I don't know what that feels like. So I immediately go towards my Christian side, and I say, you know what? I don't know if you're Christian. I would like to take a minute and pray with you.
Good.
You know what I mean? And it always takes the edge off. These police commanders, you know, who go out to these protesting sites and will sit there and get on their knee and say a prayer with a group of people. Like that's what we need. You know, as a Christian in policing, that's what you need.
Do you think white people see black men as a threat? Why or why not?
You can't group all white people together. I don't see African American males as scary. I don't. I see you as a human being. I treat you as a human being. And I'll say something about my job and my answer to this question, like I told you earlier on the phone. This gun and this badge is just my profession. It's not who I am as a person. And I feel comfortable in my own skin to go anywhere in this world and talk to anybody that is willing to talk to, sit down and answer questions, me ask them questions. Because I want to get to know people. I want to get to know who you are, where you're from, your story, everything. Because I've got an absolutely crazy story to tell too. Right. You know, but you have white people who have that privilege, that have grown up in areas where you didn't go to school with very many African Americans. You don't see them in the grocery stores because where you're living, there's not very many of them. Yeah, absolutely. They'll see you, and you can you can literally walk down a main street in downtown Savannah, see a tourist, see a group of 3 or 4 or 1 black guys coming down the street, and then they'll cross, and then they'll walk up the other side of the block.
I think most white people are scared of black males.
You think most white people are scared of black males?
I think a lot of them don't even know why, right? I don't know that many white people could explain to you why they think about where their wallet is in a gas station when a black male walks in. They haven't gone through that process to think about that.
Folks say to me sometimes, do you have to put up with a lot of that at Calvary? I said, I don't know. I'm too happy in Jesus, right? I don't doubt that there may be some out there. I haven't experienced it because I don't think a lot of people have shown that to me, certainly not now after 9 years as a pastor of a predominantly white church. But I don't experience it anyhow because...
But do you think typically white people find black males, are they, what was the word I used?
A threat.
A threat, yeah.
I mean, I just believe the answer is 100% yes. But it speaks to, and I'll share this out, it's our beliefs, right? Things that we believe. And so we are constantly looking for confirmation of those beliefs. Mm-hmm. And those beliefs come in all kinds of ways, whether they were like literally taught mm-hmm. or taught by not being taught. See, those silent lessons are huge.
Absorbed. If I've had the idea that all white men are racist, all white men hate black people, and then if some guy cuts me off or shoots me the bird or something like that, that confirms my belief.
Absolutely.
And so now, it's a sin problem. We have a sin problem. Christ is the answer. I don't, we are all saying this. This is the answer. Christ is the answer. The message and the people, we have to be the leading exponents
Following
of the gospel.
Christ. This is something I'm hearing a lot. Are you hearing this? Mm-hmm. This is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing, Stephen, I'm not a racist. I'm not oppressing anyone. I don't see color. I've never seen color. I think, Stephen, if everyone were like me and they just loved everybody, if we just all loved everybody like I loved everybody, then we would be okay. I'm not a racist. What do you say to that? Just what do you say to those things?
I think the problem is the definitions and people not understanding what they are.
So,
Yes.
collegiate definition, racism, all right?
Written by who, though?
Merriam-Webster.
That guy.
So here it is.
I
Listen
won't
to
go
this.
down there.
Right, I understand that. I believe that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. So some of these things are not blatant, they're latent. It's kind of like, why were we hated 100 years ago? I mean, we had no people in Congress, had no people on television, we had no people, we had no wealth, we had no standing, you couldn't even look a white person in the face. We had nothing, and yet we were still hated. What's that about? So I'm not trying to make everybody a racist, but I'm just telling you some things are systemic, and if you're born with the slant that favors you, sometimes you're not aware of it, like gravity. We're under its influence, but we don't so much sense it.
But what do we do with this language when people say this to us? I'm not oppressing anyone. I love everyone. If I'm not a racist, if people were just more like me, then this world would be a better place. What do we say to that?
What are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is so what? And so what?
Okay,
But what
yeah.
are you doing?
Well,
Because if you're not doing anything, if you're, you know what I mean, if as a police officer comes and says, well, look, Zach, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm not, I love everybody, I'm blue, you know what I mean, I love you, you know what I mean? Okay, cool, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right, that comment to me is the same comment. It riles me up the same way as when people tell me that they're a Christian. And so what?
Right.
What are you doing with that?
If you think that if everybody thought like you or was like you, what are you willing to do to make that happen?
That is so good. Like if you really
like,
believe that,
hey, I'm a white guy. I can't change that. I was born this way 37 years ago. You know what? But if I want us to be more like each other and love each other, what am I going to do to help Robert love me a little bit more? Am I going to go stand in line with him when he has an issue?
So to claim a title, to claim an identity for yourself automatically means that it has an action. And so I think this idea of anti-racism that we're talking about right now in our society. And I think that the church, I mean, this is just me, I think that the church who has the message of the gospel and the message of Christianity and the message that all men are loved by the Father and that Jesus died for all of us, that the message of the church is anti-racist in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right, the fact that we carry around Christ in us and we follow him, that we are anti-racist if we are indeed following Jesus, right? We defend the cause of the weak, we protect the poor, this is what we do.
That's not what the church is doing today, though. The church is lining up from pole to pole behind political personalities and all of this. You follow what I'm saying?
I know, bro.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've made the goal of the church, the mission of the church, stopping abortion or stopping racism, and the gospel
Is what does all
is
that.
what
Yeah.
does that.
I want to keep saying this, though, that when we say the gospel is the solution to this, the gospel is the solution to this, but I want to come back to what Robert said, but what are you doing? Like, where are you carrying this gospel? How are you carrying it into your Samaria? Is it impacting the way you talk to people? Do the practical things, like, do you take your hat off when you got to confront someone?
Search me, O God. Search me, O God. Know my heart. Try me. Know my thoughts. Right? I can't trust myself.
See if there be any grievous way in me.
In me.
That
right?
changes behavior.
It changes. It changes. And I'm not telling you I got this all down, but it's egregious. I mean, what bothers me is sometimes we get in our little circles and we speak comfortably and carelessly in our circles rather than challenging our circles.
So in our
So,
group,
like-
so we're comfortable,
Oh, yeah.
we don't challenge each other.
Yeah.
And maybe the Christ in us, if he's alive in us, should cause us to challenge those closest to us.
That's where courage is. Courage is not yelling at homosexual people across the street. So like I remember my barber, who was a friend of mine, I remember him cutting my little boy's hair one time when that son is 30 years old now, but he was cutting his hair and he was talking, waxing eloquent about that old blue-eyed devil, the white guy. Every conversation was like that. So you know what? We're getting a new barber. I used to challenge him, but no, so I'm not gonna sit here. I'm not gonna let my son sit here and hear this all the time. Now this is a black man hearing another black man just always berating white people.
If people are comfortable in your circle, then you need to check yourself to see why they are so comfortable in your circle.
To say what they say, to
say
do
what
what
they
they
say, do what
do.
they do.
Yeah.
And we all get comfortable. We
And
all
all
go down
different,
to
sure.
normal.
Right,
That's
sure.
why we have to be having the word of God be a discerner of the thoughts and intents of our hearts all of the time. Search me, right?
I would like for you maybe just to go around the table and just share maybe just a minute or two of what you hope will come, what we can do practically, what you hope will come from this. So Kenny, why don't we start with you and let you share with us.
So I'm the issues with Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, it really gotten us in touch with ourselves as to what we believe, right? And everybody's voicing that. And everything we believe, we think to be true. And so it's gotten us to talk about all of this, and I think some good conversation is being had. And I hope that it's more than just here and now. I hope the church understands that the power is in the gospel, the message of the gospel and the life of the gospel. I think, and I would hope that we would challenge one another, and I would say this, none of us we are not entitled to hold on to sinful positions. I'm not entitled to my unforgiveness to somebody of another race who who discriminated against me. I'm not entitled to hold on to that anger. I've been forgiven. Go on and forgive. Joseph said, God, listen, no matter what you meant, let me tell you what God meant. See?
So he could let it go.
Have to let it go and not be an eternal victim. That doesn't mean we wink our eye at social injustice and all of that, but I'm telling you, nobody has an entitlement to our positions. I'm so angry that I won't forgive. I'm so angry that I won't see that I've got life better than other people. We're not entitled to that as Christians. That's got to be jettisoned. We got to come to Christ and be exponents of the gospel.
I think that, I mean, for me, I want to see, first off, more of this happening. I want to see more people talking about it in a real way, being honest and being open, right? In a way that accepts the things that we've done wrong, so that we can actually start to examine ourselves and move forward. We're talking so much about the gospel being the answer. You're going to have a hard time finding a Christian that's not going to agree with that.
Right.
But we could probably find a lot of Christians that aren't going to agree how to get there. And so the road to making sure that we're actually acting as the unified body of Christ, I think, to actually see the gospel, see heaven come to earth, is going to take us being real about that stuff, being honest, examining ourselves, making the changes.
I really hope that more people are willing to sit down with people that are not like you and have these tough conversations, because as brothers and sisters in Christ, as Christians, our duty is to love each other. And we don't have to necessarily see eye to eye on every topic, everything that's going on, but we need to love each other, and we need to understand that other people go through things that you don't go through.
All right, so Robert, do you have just the final things you would like to say to us, what you hope comes from this?
Sure. I really actually hope people recognize that when we left Egypt, we had a desire to want to go back with the promised land on the horizon. And I actually ask people that they recognize that from 1963, there was a speech that was made by a pretty famous person. I challenge people to go read it and understand how far have we gotten since then. We're still wandering in the wilderness. And so I want people, at least to come from these moments, to say, I really want to get to the promised land and do the things necessary to get there as quickly as they can. And what that requires is actually letting go of the things that were in Egypt. The food was good, but it will be better.
And I know you, I don't know you super well, but I know you well enough to know that you've done that hard work of letting stuff go.
You have to, because you can't grow.
Hey, thank you all for being a part of this. I can't tell you how thankful I am that you made time to get and be here. I mean, I cannot believe we actually pulled it off, the scheduling. Thank you for taking time away from your families, away from your children. This conversation is absolutely important. And for those of you who viewed this, thank you so much for taking the time to view it. We believe with all of our heart that the gospel, the living out and following Jesus, the doing what he says, is the solution for us to live in unity and peace, and for all people, regardless of their skin color, to experience equality in this nation. Thank you.